Hi, my name's Anna and I'm a books journalist. This year I read around 200 books and these are my favourite 10. The first book is a debut by a New Zealand author that went on to be longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, and that is The Chimes by Anna Smale. This is a wildly creative and lyrical book about memory and control and identity. It's set in a dystopian future in London and then Oxford, where the written word has been banned and people communicate and are controlled by music. I loved it and I can't wait to see what she writes next. The next book marks the first time I think I've ever had a graphic novel on my best books of the year list, and the one that made it was Becoming Unbecoming by Una. It sets the author's story of her own experiences with sexual abuse against the backdrop of the search for the Yorkshire Ripper, which was happening at the same time. The illustrations and the words are all woven together and there's no set style for each page. And overall, it's a hugely powerful call to listen to women's voices and their experiences. The next book is another different form for me because it's a book of poetry and I am a bit of a nervous poetry reader usually. But this book, Cherry Pie by Holly Poetry, otherwise known as Holly McNish, made me realise that I need to be a little bit braver. The collection is illustrated by a big variety of illustrators and it's a really varied collection that could perhaps loosely be summed up as the experience of being a woman, although not all of them fit into that mould. Some of them are funny, some of them are really dark, some of them are really moving. I really loved it and I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does next, which is this collection, Nobody Told Me, which is coming out in February, which I have got but I haven't read yet. Continuing on with books that aren't straight novels, this is my favourite non-fiction book of the year and it is I Call Myself a Feminist, which has been edited by 5 women, Victoria Pepe, Rachel Holmes, Amy Annette, Alice Stride and Martha Moss. It's a collection of essays from 25 women who are under 30 about why they identify as feminists, and I found it inspiring and angry and diverse and clever and unapologetic and completely wonderful. Now back to novels. I have a weak spot for books about books and writing or writers, and Virginia Woolf is one of my favourite authors, so this, Vanessa and Her Sister by Priya Palmer, takes a lot of my boxes. It's the story of artist Vanessa Bell and her relationship with her rather famous sister, the writer Virginia Woolf. Writing is just beautiful. She's so good at those intense bonds that we have with siblings and with friends, and it's an amazing look at the Bloomsbury set as well. I would very much like to see this do exceptionally well when it comes out in paperback. A new book by a favourite writer is always a slightly nerve-wracking prospect, but thankfully this next book by one of my favourite writers more than lived up to expectations, and that is Kate Atkinson's companion novel to Life After Life, A God in Ruins. You can see there my proof, which I'm rather protective of, and I'm not sure if you can read, but on the front it says, "What if the new Kate Atkinson was even better than the last?" And while I think that maybe I still love Life After Life more, which I would rank as one of my all-time favourite books, I think that arguably A God in Ruins is a better book. It is so clever, and I don't want to give anything away about the plot, but the way that she builds expectations and plays with the way that we expect stories to go and the way that we tell stories about ourselves and our lives just completely fulfills its potential. It's an extraordinary achievement. Next is the only children's book on my list, although I read an awful lot of really great YA and kids books, but this was the best one, and it is The Wolf Wilder by Katherine Randall, with beautiful illustrations by Gelgrav Ongbiko. This is a magical adventure across revolutionary Russia with an amazing heroine at its heart. And while the story itself is brilliant, why I love this book and Katherine Randall generally is because of her absolutely exquisite writing and her turn of phrase. I can't really think of anyone who wouldn't enjoy reading this. And back to adult novels now. Now this one isn't a debut, although this is the first book by her that I've read. Now I don't think the cover to this actually does the book justice, but the story inside is superb, and it's The Diver's Clothes Lie Empty by Vida. It tells the story of a woman who arrives in Casablanca and has her belongings stolen just after she gets there. The book manages to be both dark and warm and quirky and funny, but also hugely moving. It's a brilliantly weird story of self and other and how we see ourselves and how other people see us. Next is a novel that deserved a lot more attention than it got, and another one that hopefully will get a second wind when it comes out in paperback. And this one is The Ecliptic by Benjamin Wood. I'm afraid that this is just a proof, but the hardback cover does look very similar. My favourite books are always the ones that manage to meld beautiful writing with a proper plot, and this one does that perfectly. It never quite did what I was expecting and I loved it for it. Book number 10 is a book of short stories by another favourite author of mine, whose last book was my favourite book of last year, and this one is Public Library by Ali Smith. The stories in the collection are all loosely linked by the idea of the relationship that we have with stories, and they're all as profound, as playful, as clever and as witty as you would hope from Ali Smith. The stories are interspersed with short sort of anecdotes and stories from people that Ali Smith has asked to contribute about what libraries mean to them. And I would be lying if I didn't say that one of the reasons I love this book so much is that I was able to contribute to it. Now, if you've been counting, you realise that that is 10 books and I promised you a top 10, but of course every year I do read lots of books that came out in different years, and so this is an honourable mention to the best book I read that came out in a different year, and that is Address Unknown by Cressman Taylor, which is a very short, very clever, very moving story told entirely through letters sent between two friends. And this was actually recommended to me by the author of another favourite book of the year, which was Not Forgetting the Whale by John Ironmonger, so be sure to have a look for that one as well. So those are my favourite books of this year, a top 10 that's really a top 11 or even maybe a top 12. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'd love to hear in the comments what your favourite books of the year were.